Hello everyone, I'm Andrea from Andrea Flipping Unique. Welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, thanks for joining. So this dresser might look familiar to some of you, and that is because I actually refinished the matching nightstand a couple of months ago for a client of mine. And just like that nightstand, this dresser was in desperate need of a makeover. The finish on this thing was beyond saving, and there was a lot of veneer missing. The corner of it was also busted, but I'll get to that in a minute. And a little plot twist for everybody. My client didn't just bring me one dresser, but she brought me two. This is the matching low dresser, and it is right up there with the other two. The finish is horrible. It's missing huge chunks of veneer. The only good thing about this one is it's not broken. So my client asked me to fix them as best as I could and to make them match the nightstand. So I definitely had my work cut out for me. So if you want to know what I did to save these two pieces of furniture, then continue watching. I started off like I always do, and that is with cleaning the outside. And I use Simple Green, which I buy in a concentrated form, and just mix it as I need it. Despite how these dressers may look, they actually weren't the dirtiest pieces of furniture I've ever dealt with. But the insides were a whole different story, and those were completely covered with dust. I normally don't vacuum and clean out the inside of my pieces until after I finished all of my sanding. However, this dust was flying around everywhere, and my allergies were getting really, really bad, so I decided just to tackle it first. The next thing that I did was try to fix this broken corner. So when my client was dropping it off, she brought a friend to help her unload, and I had asked if they needed help, and they said no. And as they were bringing it out of her vehicle, her friend lost his grip, and it went crashing down onto my garage floor. She definitely wasn't the happiest person at the moment, but I told her it was totally fine and I would try my absolute hardest to fix it for her. Luckily, I was able to hammer the side back into place, and I secured it with some glue and a new nail, and then I glued down all of the veneer that came up, and everything was going to be okay. And everything was okay up until my next little mishap. So after I had finished gluing and taping up this corner, I was trying to find this one particular clamp that I wanted to use to make sure that everything was really nice and held down. But I could not find this clamp for the life of me. So I ended up grabbing a different one, which I knew wasn't going to work. And what I thought was going to happen happened, but I did it anyway. So here is a little blooper of what happened. I don't know where my clamps are. Shoot. I'll use this one. Hopefully this will work. Son of a hurt. Oh my god, I cut myself. Oh my god, it's too hot for this nonsense. It really indeed was too hot for that nonsense that day. But I ended up finding the clamp, which was right in front of me the whole entire time. And the veneer ended up staying glued down, and everything worked out in the end. And I moved on to my next step. Before I started to remove the finish, I wanted to make sure that all of the veneer that was coming up was glued down, because I didn't want to start scraping or sanding and then have big chunks of veneer just start flying everywhere. The base on the tall boy was also broken, so I had to repair that, and I used some wood glue and some clamps to glue it back into place. After fixing everything and gluing down all of the veneer, I then moved on to removing the finish. I started off with my carbide scraper, and I was very fortunate enough that this finish literally just disintegrated as soon as I scraped it, so this process took no time at all. After the majority of the finish was off, I went back in with my orbital sander and 120 grit sandpaper and sanded everything else down. On all of the curved edges and the drawers, I did have a foam pad attached onto my orbital sander so that it was easier to sand everything. I do not know what these black marks are on the top of this dresser, but I will tell you they did not respond to sanding, and they also did not respond to oxalic acid. I was, however, able to get rid of them, but I'll show you what I did a little later on in the video. There was a lot of missing veneer on both of these dressers, and a lot of it was on the edge banding, so to save myself hours and hours of color matching, I decided just to remove a lot of it and replace it. The old edge banding didn't go to waste though, because I took it and used it to patch up the bigger pieces that were missing on the side. This also was going to save me hours of color matching, and if you're going to do this for yourself, just make sure that the grain is going in the correct direction. After everything was dry, I went and removed the tape and then sanded off any excess glue. After that, I mixed up some wood epoxy putty and filled in any cracks and any remaining missing veneer. And if you were wondering how that broken base turned out, this is the one that I repaired. If you watched my last video, you may remember me talking about stain concentrates that We Refinish is coming out with. Well, halfway through me fixing the veneer, I decided to experiment and see what would happen if I used those stain concentrates in my wood epoxy putty. I mixed the putty up as normal, and then I added a little bit of the stain into it and mixed it up again, and to my surprise, it worked pretty well. It is a little bit messy, so make sure that you are wearing gloves when you're doing this. And it does make it a lot more pliable than it normally would, almost as if it was melted a little bit, but it cured just the same. I also want to note that I did use the color Rich Caramel, which is the same color that I stained the dressers. If you caught it in the last clip, I did also use some Bondo on the base to make sure that everything was smooth before I added the new edge banding. After the wood putty was cured, I sanded it down, and then I went back in and sanded all of the dressers with 150 grit sandpaper and 180 grit sandpaper to get ready for stain. I also attached all of my new edge banding. After finishing what felt like years of fixing broken and missing veneer, I was finally able to move on to staining. I'm using the same color that I used on the nightstand, and that is Rich Caramel from We Refinish. If you aren't familiar with these stains, they are a semi-transparent stain, and they are also water-based, and you just wipe them on and wipe them right off. If you want to go check out some of their other products, I will have their website linked in my description below. You're supposed to let this stain dry for at least 6 hours, but I let mine dry overnight because it's been really humid in my area. But after it was fully dry, I added a couple of coats of top coat, and I'm using Behr's water-based polyurethane and semi-gloss. I also sanded in between coats with 400 grit sandpaper. After my top coat had dried, I then went in and started color matching everything with my repair paste. And you guessed it, that is how I was able to get rid of these black marks. These were definitely a bit of a challenge, and it did take me quite a while to do these, but I think they came out pretty good. I also want to note that color matching over the wood putty that I tinted was so much better than color matching over the plain wood putty, and moving forward, I will be doing that from here on out. Also, if you are interested in these wood repair pastes, I will have them linked down in the description below. After all of my color matching was done, I then made my own toner using the same top coat that I used from earlier, as well as the concentrated tint stain. You can make this as dark or as light as you would like, and I'm still experimenting with this myself, so I ended up doing 3 pumps to 8 ounces of top coat, and it seemed to be a really good mix. You can also do this using the regular wiping stains. It just makes the top coat a little bit more watery, and if you don't have these stains at all, no worry, you can do this using your favorite stains as long as your stain and your top coat are both either water-based or oil-based. I like using toner over my color matching because it does help to camouflage it a little bit better. I also like using toner because I can use it to change a specific section of a piece of furniture. So for instance, I ended up doing 2 extra coats on all of the edge banding that I replaced so that the color would more match the original wood. After my toner is looking the way that I like it, I end up doing 1 more coat of top coat, and I am also sanding in between all of these coats with 400 grit sandpaper. And the last thing that I always do is make sure that my drawers and my drawer slides are well hydrated, so I'm using my Arlington Woodworks Wood Balm to do that. Before I show you what these dressers look like now, I wanted to remind you of how not so good they were before. And if you want to see more furniture flips, restorations, and the occasional DIY, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button. And this is what they look like now. This set, including the nightstand that I refinished a couple of months ago, were definitely some of the hardest pieces of furniture I have ever worked on. But with that being said, I'm glad I took on the challenge because I did get a lot more practice with my veneer repair, and the look on my client's face when she saw them was totally worth it. So like always, thank you for taking the time to watch. I hope I inspired you a little bit. Be respectful in my comments, and I'll talk to y'all soon.